Good morning, and happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome back to a weekend edition of the Spin Zone. I'm your host, Spin Doc, here on behalf of the Daily Bread Network, back with you after yesterday when Sharpie and I appeared together. So, this is brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to that channel. It gives you access to all the content that we put out. If you're not already, please follow me at Spin Doc Sports. If you like what you hear, like the video, give it a share, etc. It really helps get our content out there. So, yeah, last night was a night. Fun stuff. Kind of, sort of. So, what I'm referring to, of course, we'll start by talking about Garrett Crochet. So there was, obviously he just had an absolute gem of a start. Just an absolute whale to start, pitched his tail off and was at and was at 96 pitches. The crowd was just going just belligerent to put him back in because it was a 1-0 game. Had only allowed 3 hits, had 7 strikeouts, of course, on a 7.5 line. And the problem is that he went to the well one too many times. Obviously, he had struck out Judge every time that he had faced him, 5 for 5 to that point. Got him to 3-2, and that was the pitch. I know, we were all talking about it in VIP, and we all like I was saying too. I'm like, throw him a breaking ball because he'd gotten him on high fastballs every single time. And unfortunately, he went back to the well one too many times. Judge was ready for it and smacked it to halfway back to New York. And that's the problem when you do catch up to 98 and you have the power that Judge does. It's going to go a long way. And so that would have been a perfect point. I don't play Monday morning quarterback with anybody, but I was just telling myself before he threw the pitch, I'm like, hang a sweeper, just a big slow change up, and he will be 10 miles in front of it, because he had gotten Judge with high gas every single time. The other 5 times he got him was 98 high, 98 high, 99 high, and so forth. And he went back to the same pitch and actually didn't even elevate it, left it just a little too low. And Aaron Judge is going to take advantage of that one. So Judge got his revenge. Obviously, the prop blew up right after that because you knew he was coming out. Actually, I was pretty convinced that if he even allowed one base runner, that Cora was going to pull him, because he had 2 relievers. He had a lefty and a righty, both hot, ready to go. So I had said I was certain that he'll start the 9th, and the first base runner he allows, he's done. But Judge was the one, because Rice wasn't a big strikeout candidate. Judge was the one to get. That was the one you should have gone after, or that he could have gotten. And is what it is. There is something to be said about going with what got you there. But in that situation, having gotten him 5 times on that same pitch before on 2 strikes on a 3-2 count, man, I'm just thinking of what would have happened if he would have just reared back like it's a fastball and just taken a little bit off and gone like 87, 88 on a change in a similar location. That would have been Judge was 100% swinging at virtually anything he threw there. But like I said, it is what it is. And, that those sort of things happen when you are betting on sports. Now, in other action, in other areas of baseball last night, we did have, I'm glad that I stayed off of this one. It just didn't look right. I know we had talked on the show about potentially playing an under on it for Freddie Peralta. It just didn't look right. Against St. Louis, even at home with that past history, the juice shouldn't have been -140, -150, somewhere in that whatever range it was. It just shouldn't have been that. And that screamed to me that he was going to get 6 exactly. And that's exactly what he did. So 6 exactly for him. Elsewhere, I know that on the show we talked Gavin Williams yesterday, and yeah, he obviously didn't have a good start. Sharpie did say it on the show too about that's always the risk with taking Gavin Williams is that he can give up walks and he can walk himself out of the game, and that's exactly what happened. Now, I'll give him a slight bit of grace here because I actually watched that start, and in the first 2 innings, there were two strike three calls there were two strike three calls on breaking balls that just not even touched the bottom of the zone that were like 3/4 of the way in that just missed, and you could tell it messed with his head. And I don't think that that's really the reason why it lost. He didn't have a very good start to begin with, to be honest. But when you have a pitcher that can be a little wild, that can lose confidence in himself and get out of control, the last thing you want is you don't want an umpire who is gonna just biff those calls. And you could tell it messed with him. When he got the ball back, how sometimes pitchers just catch it. He did the angry snap his arm back, like he was pissed. And I would have been too. And again, would that have caused him to pitch differently and hit the prop? I mean, going from 1 to 6 is a big jump, so I'm not necessarily sure. However, is that those sorts of things can really, really mess with a pitcher's mind, especially a pitcher that can give up walks like that, which really sucked because it was a pitcher's umpire. Yeah, actually, that guy, the ump last night, Derek Thomas, actually did have a pretty reasonable strike zone. So that happens as well. Elsewhere. Trying to think if there's any other ones. I know we talked Skeens right before we went on. He started off okay, and then just too many pitches that were in hittable parts of the zone. That's always been one of the things with Skeens, is that he does throw his stuff in less hittable parts of the zone, corners, edges, etc. So it forces you to either take it and maybe take it for a strike, or in the first 3 innings, he looked dynamite. And the Cubs made some adjustments at the plate, and he stopped painting those corners, and the ones that were outside were way outside. So he put himself in hitters counts where his strikeout percentage drops to the mid 20s. And that was pretty much all she wrote. So I think that was it for the day. A couple other ones that I was actually I told VIP this because he made my finalist list, and I just couldn't back him because of how bad he's been. But Charlie Morton, sigh. Of course, he goes out there in case 10 and looks like Charlie Morton of like 7 years ago. All that really told me was the Angels are a team where even if a pitcher is pitching poorly, you can probably still look at who's ever starting against them, especially if it's a guy who can rack up strikeouts like Charlie Morton. Unfortunately, we don't have that today with Shigano. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He doesn't have the velo. He doesn't have the breaking stuff that Morton has, which is probably the biggest thing, because they couldn't touch Morton's curveball. And it wasn't like he was even throwing it that fantastically either. He was just throwing it. He was kind of throwing it the same way he did in the last start against the Athletics. And it just happened that he faced a team that is one of the worst swinging teams in all of baseball. So especially brand new addition, Lamont Wade Jr., 4 plate appearances, 4 strikeouts. You had Soler with 4 plate appearances, 3 strikeouts, and they were bad last night. That's another reason why, obviously, Shigano's not a strikeout pitcher to begin with. But it's another reason why, if I'm going to go back to the well against a team that just struck out 4,000 times the night before, because there was 15 total for the Orioles, I'm usually looking at, like, it has to be a strikeout pitcher. And again, Shigano is just not that. So those were, I think, the learnings of yesterday. If you watched the NBA Finals, there were, I know we hit a number of props in VIP. There were leans, but I mean, how the game was going to go. I mean, once the official got released, you should have known that one. He's not called the extender for nothing. And I don't get into, fixed and rigged and questionable calls. I joke about it, but like, do I really think that the NBA finals are rigged? No, I don't. But it is just funny that whenever there's a team that is down like that and you need them to get a win to get back into a competitive series, Scott Foster seems to officiate those games a lot. And the team that needs to get back in it wins those games a lot. So I said, once you saw who the official was, then which was released, I think sometime in the middle of the afternoon or maybe in the early afternoon, like that should have been a nice clue in as far as what was going to happen in the game. He's not called the extender for nothing. Anyways, this is a baseball show, and we do have 3 pitchers to talk about today. There's actually a lot of decent guys going, a lot of decent spots going. So if there's anybody I missed, please do go ahead and put it in the chat, and we will go from there. But just shout out to some of those people that are in the chat. Cover Kings, welcome in, and thanks for being here. He's on 1 unit on Joe Ryan, over 5.5. Against the Astros. I think it went to 6.5 now, but you can always go and do 6+. Zach Gallen, 1 unit under 4.5 strikeouts, -130 against the Padres. You got over a half unit on Clayton Kershaw, over 4.5 strikeouts at +100. Expecting him to potentially continue his reclamation campaign from what started in St. Louis. And Spencer Strider, over 8.5 strikeouts. We'll be talking about him at +105. And said, yeah, yesterday felt like a bad dream. Yeah, those days. I mean, between Thursday and Friday, with Senga getting hurt, going to the bag, and what happened with Crochet, and I mean. I know that Sharpie and I kind of talked about maybe wanting, to take a little shot, and I'll be totally transparent. We did in VIP take a shot on Cabrera under, and from the start, the first 3 innings, it looked like he was going to strike out about 15. He got his 5 strikeouts in like 35 pitches, and then of course didn't have a single one the rest of the way. So it's a hook. And then of course there was a rain delay, which he would have come out anyway, which also factored into the play because rain delays never favor overs for pitchers. And I just blah, blah. But the good news, see, the bad news about having a banger day is that the next day you're 0-0. The good news about having a bad dream day is you're 0-0. So that's the way that I choose to look at it. And we're 0-0 today, and we'll see what we can do. Roger in the house, what is up to you, my guy? So glad you won the contest, man. Love having you in VIP, and so glad Friday the 13th is over. Yeah, no kidding. Cover Kings again saying he was at 108 pitches too. Yeah. I had said from the time that I saw him out there, this is Crochet we're talking about, is that the second that he allowed a base runner, didn't matter if it was a walk, didn't matter if it didn't make a difference. Any base runner, he was gone. And that's for 2 reasons. One, because of the closeness of the game, and he's obviously thrown 8 innings. So even though he was throwing 100, he was still firing 100 in there. You got to think that, you throw 100 pitches and it gets to you. And number 2 is, just the closeness of the game and the pitch count that he was at. One base runner, he was gone. Justin in the house, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you, and appreciate Sosa prop god and Sogd. I think Soged. I don't know how you say it, but thank you for reposting the stream. Appreciate the love. And Justin also has a few player props here to talk about. Is Manny Machado for an RBI at +135, and Freddie Freeman for an RBI at +132. We'll get to it when we get to other plays, whatever. I personally think that tonight is Dodgers revenge. I think that last night seemed to be a wake-up call for him, especially with Yoshi on the mound and losing as they did. I think that tonight is like the version of like the Empire Strikes Back. in the series. So, and thank you to Poppy Seed for joining and for reposting the stream. All right, 3 pitchers to talk about, and we will get on with the business. First pitcher is the other side of the game that Cover Kings is on, and we have Hunter Brown, the righty, striking guys out at a 31.1% clip, walking guys at an 8.4% clip. He gets my hometown Twins at 4:10 p.m. We have a line exactly what I expected it to be, which is a midway juiced over 6.5 to the over and a slightly plus money under. All right, so Hunter Brown at home has been quite amazing, with the exception of his last start against Tampa Bay, where he pitched himself and walked himself out of the game and ran up his pitch count. He's been absolutely dominant. 8, 9, 9, 8. 9, I think another 9 in there in his home starts this year. Hasn't really mattered who it's been against. It's been against all kinds of different contact teams. Outs are set at a 17.5 juice to the over, which is pretty normal for him, as are hits juice to the under. So normally you get a pretty evenly juiced 4.5 on the hits for Hunter Brown. This one is juiced slightly to the under. That doesn't always tell me exactly that I think he's going to go out and smack, but it says that there is a possibility of that because that's what the books opened it up at. And earn runs are at a 1.5, as they always are. Now, Hunter Brown does spend just about league average in the zone, but his zone contact allowed is absolutely elite. 79.2%. I've talked about this before. Anything under 80 is considered very good. Anything under 75 is outstanding. And then anything under like 72 or 73 is basically Tarek Skubal. So Hunter Brown does generate a decent amount of chase, but guys do make chase contact. So with Hunter Brown, what I am usually looking for is the zone contact. And in this Twins lineup right now, which is projected to be 3 lefties and 6 righties, is that the Twins as a team over the last few weeks, have had a very, very good zone contact rate, 89.1 compared to a league average of 86.2. Now you go and you see and you look at the hitters from zone contact and zone swing, because the other point here is Hunter Brown has almost a 50% K percentage when he gets ahead in counts, and his K percentage goes up over 40, which is like Paul Skeen's rate, which is like it's not quite Skubal, but it's close to Skubal rate when he gets 0-1 on hitters. So what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for guys who either have poor zone contact or league average, or can take in the zone, because with his fastball, his 4-seam fastball is an out pitch. It's got a 33% whiff percentage, 28% put away percentage, which is really good for a 4-seam fastball. Normally you see 22, 23. And it averages at 97. He can run it up to 98, 99. I think he's still looking for that elusive 100. I talked about how earlier in the year, the Astros broadcast was saying that they were joking with him about how he hasn't touched 100 in a game, and he basically was like, I know, because he keeps track. So still looking for that elusive 100, but he can run it up in the 99 range. When you can do that, and when you can place it the way that in the place that Hunter Brown does, which he typically, the 4-seamer operates close to the top of the zone, it's a nice complement to his curveball, which is almost a pure 12-6 curve. It's got a huge dip and a huge change in velocity. So to the point of 97 for the fastball and 84 for the curveball. And sometimes the curve comes in even slow. Sometimes it comes in the lower 80s, almost under 80. So if you're a hitter trying to hit 97, 98 rising up, or a 96 mile an hour sinker that starts up and coming down, and then all of a sudden you get this like Bugs Bunny like pitch that just kind of goes whoop in a big dip. That's what makes Hunter Brown so difficult to hit, because the curve has average spin, but it's got great movement. It's got great vertical drop and almost goes straight down. So if you're going to put yourself in pitchers counts against this man, you're going to be in trouble. So we'll take this 3-3-3 like we always do. Buxton, Larnach, and Jeffers are the first 3. Buxton swings a ton in the zone, makes contact under league average. He can be quite free swinging, so that can be a positive or a negative depending on how fast he's getting his bat around. Larnach is Larnach does swing less in the zone and has contact under league average. He is definitely a strikeout candidate. The same thing goes with Jeffers. Jeffers takes a ton of pitches in the zone, has a swing rate 12% under league average. He's got a contact rate above average, but when you take this many pitches against a guy who can just blast it by you, is you are putting yourself in a position to strike out, to the point of, I just talked about Larnach. He struck out 5 out of 13 times against Hunter Brown. Buxton has struck out 4 out of 12 times. And so both of these guys do have the potential to strike out. And then Jeffers, Jeffers 8 of 13. So the top 3 here not only have great strikeout percentage against Hunter Brown, but you can see why, because Buxton free swings. And so if his bat isn't getting around on time, then you have the potential to put yourself in those pitchers' counts. And the other 2 take pitches in the zone, which puts you in those pitchers' counts, which can set you up for the change in both velo and in location with the curve, or the fastball sinker to the curve. So of the top 3, you probably have 2.5 to 3 strikeouts right there. So we're off to a good start on the over for Hunter Brown. Next 3, Correa, Wallner, and France. So Carlos Correa, tough to strike out anyway. Swings about league average in the zone. And overall, he has only struck out 1 out of 9 times against Hunter Brown. Carlos Correa is actually, obviously he's not like the MVP level that he used to be, but he is still playing pretty good baseball. And the other thing is he's incredibly hard to strike out on 2 strikes. He's actually got one of the higher 2-strike contact rates in baseball. So Hunter Brown thrives on that. So I can't put him down for anything more than a 0.25. Wallner and France. France is another high contact guy. So, and he does swing a lot in the zone, and he also does not have a lot of strikeouts against Brown. So that's another potential dead spot. And Wallner does swing above average in the zone, but his zone contact is really, really poor. He also can have a very high whiff percentage to a four-seam fastball. So you got to put him for 1. So between all of those guys right now, what I have from the top 5, or from the top 6, I should say, is I have 4.5. I have 4.5. So now can we get to 7 with, well, Royce Lewis is projected to be in. I'm not sure if he's going to be, because I know that he walked off last night. Castro and Bader, but we'll go with projected to begin with. So if Royce Lewis does happen to be in, he has zone contact under league average. He can be a strikeout candidate. Castro and Bader have, Castro swings a lot and has contact below league average. He can be a strikeout candidate. The same thing goes with Bader, who takes a lot of pitches and who has under league average in zone contact. You go and you look at the overall strikeout history, and it kind of correlates, because Bader, Brown's gotten him 2 out of 4 times, and you also have, he's gotten Lewis the only time he's faced him. Again, I'm not sure that Lewis is going to be in the lineup today. And Wallner, he's gotten, no, I'm sorry, not Wallner. Castro. So, and Willie Castro, he has gotten 3 out of 11 times. So not as much. So what all this adds up to is there are 7 strikeouts out here. And if Royce Lewis isn't in the lineup, it's going to depend on who gets put in his place, because we do have a whole bunch of guys that have under league average in zone contact. Jonah Bride, there's 2 or 3 more besides Jonah Bride that can be put in. The one that might make me think just a little bit would be if they do go with Jose Miranda. Reason being is because he's got almost a 90% zone contact rate, and he does chase a lot, but it is the kind of hitter that doesn't really strike out that much against Hunter Brown. So I'm going to wait on the final lineup here. If Royce Lewis does happen to play, and this is the projected that we get, there's 7 strikeouts out here, and I probably am willing to pay up for the juice as well. So the lean here for sure is on the over 6.5, especially when you do have the top 3 that either swing a ton in the zone and have under league average for zone contact, or take pitches in the zone and put themselves in those pitchers' counts. So this is an over or nothing for me for Hunter Brown. I don't see many scenarios or even many lineups that the Twins could put out there that are realistic that would even make me even want to think about an under here, especially not at home. So a few more people in the chat before we go on to the next one. Yeah, Steven saying I called that Judge bomb to my wife last night. I just felt with Judge striking out 3 times. Yeah, I would agree with you, Steven. I would agree with you. I said it before. I was just like trying to channel. I'm like, throw him a breaking ball. Throw him a breaking ball. He's going to swing. But that's also a lesson for a young pitcher too, because Crochet is still very young, is that you can only go to the well so many times. And he went to the well one too many times against Judge. And I mean, think about it. If he would have blown 98 past him and the crowd would have gone ballistic, and the big enemy of the state in Boston, Aaron Judge, strikes out 6 out of 6 times. I mean, the crowd would have gone ballistic. But you got to think like just big slow curve sweeper or big slow change up there, and Judge is 10 miles in front of it. But we do have Hawk in the house. Thank you for joining and welcome in. Steven says he had Acuna 3 bases total. I believe that cashed. So yep. And yep. Love it. Love it. Love it. So again, I've always said, whether it's the stuff that I'm giving out or it's your own stuff or it's somebody else's stuff, the big point is, as long as you win and the books don't, that's what counts. So we'll move on from Hunter Brown and we will go to, Spencer Strider. Okay. The righty, these numbers are this year's numbers. They're obviously not indicative of his career numbers as a pitcher, but striking guys out this year at 22.4%, walking guys at 10.3%. I'll explain why I believe that is in just a moment. He gets the strikeout kings themselves, the Rocks. And we have a line. We have a first 8.5 line for Spencer Strider of the season at -105. You can't even get it at plus money in some places. It's hovering right around this area at the moment. All right, Spencer Strider. So why is his walk percentage up so much? Well, I've talked about this on my show and elsewhere before, is that he doesn't have his velo back. He hasn't had his velo back since returning. It was down again in his last start against the Giants by another almost 0.5 miles an hour. And for a guy like Strider, where his locations on his fastball are okay, and it sounds weird to say stuff like that about a pitcher like Strider, but his location is okay. Totally different pitcher, but and a lefty. But like the first guy that comes to mind from a location standpoint with their 4-seam fastball is a guy like Andrew Abbott. So Andrew Abbott throws like 92, 93. And so his gas is nowhere near what Strider's is. But what Abbott does so well is he has precision location to paint those corners. Strider hasn't really had that, and he especially hasn't had it since he's come back. And so the other thing that he hasn't had is that his slider, which is the only other pitch that he throws, is breaking way too early. It's breaking down way too early. And so instead of coming to the plate like this and then snapping down, which is what it usually does, you could see it against San Francisco. It basically just bounces to the plate. And I don't care if you're a AAA team or the Colorado Rockies, which some days resemble a AAA team, is that you can avoid those pitches. And if you're just getting 95 to 96 straight down the gut, or even middle high, like where he usually puts it, you can hit that. That makes Strider essentially a one pitch, or in some cases like a half a pitch pitcher. And like I said, all these things sound so weird to say about Spencer Strider, but think about it when Chris Sale, again, lefty righty, but think about it when Chris Sale, his teammate, hasn't had his slider working. There have been multiple games where Sale hasn't had his slider working. And if the slider isn't snapping and you can't touch the 97, 98, 99 that you're used to on your fastball, and that's all you throw, you become a relatively average pitcher. And so, again, his last few starts, the only pitches that Strider has thrown have been a four-seam fastball and a slider. Now, for me to want to back Spencer Strider in this spot, because I'm going to skip all of the metrics for the Rockies. You know they're poor. You know they suck. You know they whiff. I don't have to go through all that again. I mean, for me, that's wasted airtime. What I'll talk about is what Spencer Strider needs to do to hit this number, because can he hit this number against this team? Well, of course he can. Like many strikeout pitchers can. Will he, though? And here's what I'm seeing. So I do see I do see a few positives in this line. I do see that his outs recorded are at 17 and a half, heavily juiced towards the over. So the books are saying that he's going to go 6. Now, the other thing that I'm seeing here is that his hits are down at a 4.5, which they've been, but his earned runs are at a reasonably juiced over 1.5. And in the games that he has allowed more than one earned run, which actually in games he's allowed more than 2 earned runs, is that the strikeouts have just been absolutely abysmal, 3, 4, and 5. So in games where he's allowed, and then another game where he had 5 against the Blue Jays where he allowed 2 earned runs. So that's a concern for me. The other concern for me is that with a guy like Strider, and this is exactly what I told VIP last night, because I'll be totally honest with you, unless something drastically changes in the line, in VIP, I am completely passing on Strider. I am just going to watch and observe. He is in you need to prove it to me mode, and he needs to prove one of two things. He needs to prove, one, that he can maintain his velo, because in his last start against the Giants, his average was 94.8. This is a guy who averaged 98 last year when he was just like when he was the K King. His minimum on his fastball, he had one that came in at 92.3. Spencer Strider hasn't done that virtually in his entire career, and he only hit 96.5 on the gun, so he hadn't touched 97. This is actually 2 straight games, I believe, where he hasn't touched 97 on the gun, or maybe he did once. And you saw it with Tarek Skubal against the Orioles, is that a slight dip in fastball velo is bad for a guy that uses it as one of his out pitches. Now, if he was a setup fastball guy, if he just used it like, say, Jack Flaherty would, and just used it to set up hitters and get foul balls, this would be a different conversation. But to do that, he would need a third pitch that he could use as an out pitch. And Strider doesn't have that. Or if he does, he's not throwing it, because in his last 2 starts against the Giants, he threw his changeup and his curveball a combined 2 times. And in his start before that against the Diamondbacks, he threw his curveball, I believe it was 13% of the time. So you think about his last 2 starts, and he's throwing his third and fourth pitches less than 10% of the time. That means that you're getting a fastball or you're getting a slider. And the problem becomes, again, is that 96 dead center or even up in the zone, a lot of guys can hit that. Yeah, you'll get a few, but you saw the difference with Tarek Skubal when in previous starts, he just blew it past guys at 99 to 100 versus the 96 to 97 that he was throwing against Baltimore. It's a setup pitch, and it's a get foul balls or get weak grounders pitch, but it's not an out pitch. So you take that away. The second thing I need to see is I need to see the slider snap again, because just looking at a spray chart of just where his sliders landed in his last 2 starts, and it just isn't pretty. They still have some snap and they still have some vertical drop. The problem is that they don't come in at an angle that make the pitch competitive, because if you're going to throw a snap slider like that breaks down and slightly away, is that you need that pitch to come in looking like a fastball, looking like a changeup, and then it snaps away this way and hitters swing over the top of it. But if that doesn't happen, if you're going to see it snap halfway to the plate, then you can just stand there. And that's what I believe has led to his high walk rate. Now, I know it sounds like I'm like having this like funeral for Spencer Strider, and that's not the case at all, because I love the guy and I want to see him get his mojo back, because when he's got his stuff back, this man is just absolutely dominant. This man is Tarek Skubal dominant. He's like the righty version of Tarek Skubal. So I need to see it. I need to see it. Or I need to see, and I think Steven mentioned it too, said about 2 seasons ago, yep, he needs another pitch. He needs another pitch that he can throw with consistency to get strikeouts. Now, his changeup has this year a 42.9% whiff rate. The problem becomes opponents are also hitting 500 off of it. And the slugging percentage is 1,000, and they have an X slugging percentage of 911. So when it's getting touched bad, and he's only throwing it to lefties, and he's only throwing it about 6% of the time. And so I don't really give a damn what pitch it is. It's just use something else, and use something else in regular rotation, because with this velo drop, and by the way, if you look over his last 4 years in the majors, his velo has actually dropped each of the last 4 years. 2024, I'll give him a little bit of a grace for, because he got hurt. But 2022, it was 98.2. 2023, it was 97.2. 2024, 96.3, and now it's 95.1. So until that velo comes back, or he develops a third pitch, it's really hard for me to back Spencer Strider on any kind of over prop. So I'm going to wait and see. I hope he does. I really hope he does, because this man is a joy to watch pitch when he's got his stuff working, but his stuff is not working right now. And so now the question, the other side of the equation is, oh, well, it's such a big number. Do you take him under? It's the Rockies. No. The simple fact is, if he does come out and all of a sudden, let's say they watched film, let's say they did something and they figured some things out, and all of a sudden you see he's throwing 99, well, then he can very easily get a strikeout. So what you might want to do is watch the first inning and watch the velo. If it's 97, 98, you might want to consider potentially getting in on a live shot for maybe a half unit on an over. If it's still in that 95 to 96 range, and even down in the 94 range, I can't get there. Unless all of a sudden, for some reason today, he's going to throw like 30% curveballs, which I doubt. So yeah, that's Spencer Strider. And that's why I said I didn't want to get too far into the numbers, because everybody knows how terrible Colorado is. I don't need to rehash that. This was really more about Strider, the pitcher, and what I need to see and what you should be looking for, because really, even if you don't back a guy today, there still is value in, even if you don't watch the game, following the game cast, following the Savant metrics. Like, I mean, if you go back and look at the box score, you can look batter by batter about where the pitch was and what the velo is. Even just a quick few views of that will tell you what you need to know with Spencer Strider. And even if it doesn't happen or materialize this game, it can be something to use to take forward for next game. So Strider is on the shelf for me. I want him to get back to form badly, but today I recommend you should too. I recommend you should either pass on it, or I'm recommending that you watch. And if his velo is there in the first inning, if it's back, that, or if he's using a curve or a changeup more than just like 1 or 2 times, that can be a live overlook. And if he does, and if his velo is back, or he's starting to do that, then he's going to be back on my I'll look at him the next time list. Last thing about Strider is, because I said as a VIP last night, is Strider on the road, given the situation right now and the usual numbers the books use to set their line, should be at a 6.5. Strider at home should be at a 7.5. Rockies taxes +1. He gets an 8.5 with no abnormal juice. So to me, there's nothing really fishy about this line. To me, this is, because Strider at home against most teams that aren't like super high contact is going to be a 7.5. You add in the +1 Rockies tax, and there you get a 8.5, and with the slight juice on the under. So that's Strider. And last but not least, and you might think that it's going to be Jack Flaherty because I always talk about him, but it's not. We're actually going to skip Big Jack today, and we're going to talk about the bane of my existence, Carlos fucking Rodon, the guy who had his own list for me last year in VIP of guys that I wouldn't bet on no matter what the line is and no matter what the situation is. Just because the guy is so hard to figure out. Got him figured out a little bit more this year, so we'll talk about him because he's in a unique situation. He's in a back-to-back, and he's in the toughest type of back-to-back where he's going from home to road on 2 back-to-back nationally televised games. So Carlos Rodon, the lefty, striking guys out at a 31% rate and walking guys at a 9% rate, gets the Red Sox at 7:15 Eastern tonight. And we have no adjustment in a back-to-back line. We talked about this yesterday. Sharpie talked about this, about that they don't adjust guys on a back-to-back unless they're expecting a somewhat different result. And so he now goes on the road to Fenway Park and gets the same team that he got on Sunday Night Baseball, where he struggled to get. Well, he pitched better. He actually pitched decently, but only recorded 15 outs. He pitched decently for the first few innings and then got tagged. 5 earned runs and did not pitch past the 5th inning. So we have a 7.5, which is essentially what the line was last time. And we have a slight juice on the under on DraftKings. Now, there's a little bit of fluctuation on juice for this one because DraftKings has it at -125. You have FanDuel and MGM and Caesars all in the -140 range, and BetRivers has it basically where DraftKings does. So 20 cents is a decent amount. So let's talk about Carlos Rodon. Well, first things first is that there are plenty of opportunities for past history to use here against this Red Sox lineup, which is right now 3 lefties and 6 righties. And I'm guessing that they're going to run relatively the same lineup that they ran last time, injuries and change, et cetera, notwithstanding. But they're probably going to run a very, very similar lineup. So when you go 1 through 3 and you look at past history, and again, with Rodon, I always look at chase. The reason being is because the man spends a very, very small percentage of his time in the zone to the tune of 45.1%. That's down in like Freddie Peralta territory. And when you chase, you do not make contact against this man, allowing 46% chase contact, which is one of the best marks among all qualified starters in baseball. His slider, which is his main slider, curve too, but slider, which is his main chase pitch, on our clock, it does run in the 4 to 5 range, and it's got some bite, generating a 43.5% whiff rate and comes in over 11 miles an hour slower than his 4-seam fastball. So comes in like a fastball. I talked about this with Strider, just basically inverse it because righty lefty, but it basically comes in like a fastball here and then bites down and away and can be a very, very hard pitch to pick up because it looks like it's going to be in the lower part of the zone almost until it gets to the plate when it's thrown correctly. The problem is when it's not thrown correctly, the same thing happens to his slider that would happen to Spencer Strider's, is that it bites too early and it bounces and it makes it very, very easy. So when I look at Rodon's props, first thing I want to look at is I want to look at walks. And right now his walks are set at a 1.5 juiced to the over, So that is pretty normal for what you would see from Rodon because he is averaging 2 walks a game. And the other thing is that when Rodon has walked 2 or more batters in a game, he is less than 50% to even hitting 6 strikeouts, much less 8. So he's hit 8 once when he's walked more than 2 batters. And he hit 9 because he walked 4 batters against the Rays back in April and did hit 9. But walks can be an indicator for Carlos Rodon. Now we go to the Red Sox lineup again, and we're looking for a couple things. We're looking for chase. And we are looking for any abnormally low chase contact, because even if teams don't chase, if they're going to put themselves in the pitcher's counts, they can be susceptible to Rodon's slider. So we go 1, 2, 3. We have Duran, Devers, and Ref Snyder. Duran has struck out 4 out of 12 times against Rodon. Devers, surprisingly, has struck out 5 out of 20. Ref Snyder, not that many, 3 out of 18. Of those 3, you do have Devers who swings a lot in the zone, but actually doesn't chase. You also have Ref Snyder, who chases very, very little. Duran does chase above league average. I'm coming up with about 1.5 here, possibly 2. I think that this year, even though the poor past history, like, you kind of have to mark Devers up for at least a half, maybe even 0.75, just because of what his strikeout percentage is. So I probably have 1.5 between these 3, max of 2. Next 3, Narvaez, Gonzalez, and Toro. From a strikeout perspective, we have Toro has never struck out against Rodon. Narvaez doesn't have that many plate appearances, and Gonzalez is 1 for 8. Not a lot of strikeout percentage here. Gonzalez does chase, so I think that we have to give him at least a half. And Narvaez chases above league average, so that's a potential strikeout there. Toro chases a ton, but makes good chase contact and hasn't struck out. So I think between these 3, which to me are the toughest 3 to project, I probably got 1 to 1.5 here. So now I'm at 3, probably 4. And as you can see, I'm not, especially on a back-to-back, I'm not coming up with a ton of paths to 8. So we close with Story, the Kid Anthony, and Campbell. So Story chases a ton, doesn't make contact. You have to put him up for 1. Anthony, I'll talk about in a second, and Campbell does not chase, and also has not struck out in 2 plate appearances against Rodon. You can still put him for a half, maybe up to 1. So I'm coming up with 5, 6 here. Now, the question then becomes the Kid Anthony. So Roman Anthony is the Red Sox top prospect and one of the top prospects in all of baseball. He's got limited plate appearances and only has seen 61 pitches this year. So it's hard for me to use his contact metrics as anything discernible, but it does combine well with what his scouting report has been throughout the minors and his swing profile in the minor leagues, which is he's got very fast bat speed. He's got great reflexes, and he's got decent power. He's got good power, and actually is a good contact hitter. There are still a couple things to think about when it comes to him, because he hasn't faced Rodon before. He's had up and down strikeout issues in the minors, but overall, if they do bat Anthony, which it's a lefty, so I'm not sure if they will, to throw the kid out there on national TV, but that's why they brought him up. So if they put him in the 8 or the 9 hole, I have to mark him down for 1. So what I'm coming up with Rodon is I'm coming up with 7. And if this is the lineup that they're going to run, and we're going to have only 4 who chase above league average, then I can't get there with the over, and I'm actually leaning on an under here. I'm seeing 7. And it sounds so weird to say against the Red Sox, just because some of their whiff percentages are just atrocious. But when you get a guy on a back-to-back, and especially when you get a guy who 70% of his pitches are four-seamer and slider, so 70%, there's not a whole lot else that he can do that is going to like fool you, right? There's not a whole lot that he can do to fool you, especially Rodon has had issues here and there in these nationally televised, like big time regular season games from a strikeout perspective. And there have been a couple issues in his past, while he didn't have any the last 2 years, but so I don't know how much stock I put into this was on back-to-backs. Now, the only real back-to-back that I have over the last 2 years to go off of is a postseason one. So it's not really an apples to oranges comparison, but he did strike out 9 against the Guardians, and then went to Cleveland and then only got 6. So you look back at some of his past back-to-backs prior to that, and you see something similar, but it is too far in the back of his history to really mean a lot. So I can't look at an over on this one. I really can't. And I especially can't because, like I said, when they don't mess with you on a back-to-back, then that tells me that at least there's a decent amount of thought that the result would be something similar. And Rodon didn't even come close to 8 last time. So we'll go to other sides, other looks. I see some questions here. I'll try to get to all of them. I'll go up here. Justin, first of all, Uncle Stoner, thank you so much for thank you so much, man, for reposting the stream. Thanks for being here. My dog as well. Appreciate you, my guy. I'm going to go from the bottom up, and if I don't get yours, just ping me in the chat again. So Roger says, thoughts on Flaherty outs at 17.5. He's at home against an inferior team. That's never a bad bet. The only problem I have with that, though, Roger, is that, oh my, is this juiced? This is juiced to the gills. So I would try to find something else to pair it with, because I'm not really sure that I don't like paying minus 170 or whatever it is for an outs prop. Thoughts on Boyd and Joe Ryan? I think that Cover Kings was who's in here did have a play already on the over for Joe Ryan. If I was going to play that one, that's where I would look too. Boyd, the same. For Boyd, I'd probably look the same exact thing because of how his line is set. So lean over on both. Justin saying Yankees over 8.5 in my pocket. That I'm assuming that's the full game total, unless you're like want to go crazy on the team total, but I assume that's the full game total. RJ3 Gaming, welcome in, my guy. Appreciate you saying thoughts on Brady Singer out under 16.5 outs against the Tigers. I don't hate it. Brady Singer is just such a blah pitcher to me. And what I mean by that is not that he's not good. It's just that he's just like, he's not really a strikeout guy. He's not really like a ultra high or ultra low contact guy. And he does throw in the zone a lot. And so the Tigers' zone contact has been literally at league average over the last 2 weeks. And their chase contact has been almost right at league average. So it's just been so average that's where I go, because all of his lines are literally just set at average, and he is averaging 16 outs per game. So I think this is one of those where it's a 50-50 shot and both sides are juiced, which means unless you have a strong read somewhere else in the line or in the pitcher in the game or after the lineup comes out, is that this also tells me that the books think it's a 50-50 shot too, that it's either going to be 16 or 17 or somewhere right in that range, and they juiced both sides. So when you're taking a 50-50 shot juiced, that's over time, it's negative EV. Now, if you happen to strike it when it's the right spot, obviously you can make money. So I personally would just stay off of it. But if you see something else that would lead you to believe that he might get touched up a little bit early, then that would run his pitch count up. All right. I'm trying to think if there's any others. I don't see any. So I think that will do it for questions. If I didn't get to yours, please put it in the chat right away. But for other looks and leans and everything today, there's a few money lines that I think that do hold some value, especially plus money ones. The Marlins at plus 110 hold some value to me. And the if you really want to gamble, there's value. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is value once they get through DeGrom, where there are scenarios where the White Sox win the game today. So plus 295, I wouldn't go any more than lunch money on that. And again, I'm not predicting that they're going to win, but it might be worth some lunch money. I think that the Cubs money line has is a good look. My problem is it's just gaudily juiced. So if you want to take it and put it with something else that is plus money, you can do that. That can be another look as well. For totals, and then we'll close the show. Totals, the under 7 for the Twins and Astros, I think, does have a decent amount of value. That goes in line with expecting Joe Ryan and Hunter Brown to have a good start. The Dodgers team total over, I think, is going to be something I'm looking very heavily at. I do think this is an Empire Strikes Back day, and I think that there are a lot of worlds where the Dodgers run line makes sense. I can see the Dodgers coming out and just pounding Landon Roop today. And then the other one would be Cardinals and Brewers under 8 was the other one that I thought might have had some value. So, RJ3, I'm not saying don't take it. It's just not something that I feel strongly about. And I see it as, like I said, one of those 50-50 shots. And usually if you're, and usually that's what happens when the books think it's a 50-50 shot too, is they'll just lightly juice both sides. Because what that ensures is that they make money no matter what. Because if you have both sides juiced, then losers pay the winners. And then whatever side happens to be the losing side, the books keep the juice from that. And that's a lot of plays that you see that have that light juice on both sides. Those are ones that are essentially 50-50 coin flips. And so like the example that I use, and then I'll get out of here, is to say like, we'll flip a coin 100 times. And every time it comes up heads, you pay me $10. And every time it comes up tails, I pay you $9. Well, simple math would tell you there's a 50-50 shot of heads or tails, and you're getting $1 less each time. That's essentially what a line like that says. So unless you feel something strongly somewhere else, and I would just, as a general advice for anybody, when you see lines like that, if you have a strong feeling one way or the other on those lightly juiced on both sides lines, then go ahead and go with it, because then that could push your advantage to over 50%, which makes it plus EV. But if you don't have any other read to the contrary, then it's 50-50 and it's negative EV to take it. All right, we'll close out. Thank you so much, everybody, for being in here. Thank you for everybody who reposted. Thank you to everybody who commented and joined. Cover Kings, thank you for the plays. Roger, Justin, So-Getter, Sog, Prop, and of course Sosa, Justin, Poppy, Steven, Justin, Hawk, RJ3 Gaming, Uncle Stoner, Kid Keon. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in. Appreciate it. No show tomorrow. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. If you're not a dad, or even if your dad is still with us, please make sure, give him a call, tell him how much you appreciate it, and hang out with him if you can. So I know that I'm very thankful that both my father and my father-in-law are still with us, and so we'll be hanging out with family tomorrow. So no show, but happy Father's Day to everybody. Back on Monday, and best of luck with all your tailing. We'll see you then.